You don't belong here. This bank doesn't serve people like you." The words cracked through the marble lobby like a whip. Heads turned. A woman in a sharp red blazer stood at the counter, her finger stabbing the air toward a man who hadn't even raised his voice. Her face was taut, eyes blazing like she had just spotted an intruder instead of a customer. Beside her, a uniformed security officer grinned wide, one hand already locking around the man's wrists as if he had been waiting for this moment all day. And the man in the pale blue shirt? He didn't resist. His jaw set, his chest still, his eyes steady, calm like stone, even as humiliation pressed down on him in front of strangers and strangers' phones. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus Reed. It was 9:42 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The bank lobby glowed under chandeliers and glass panels, every detail designed to whisper wealth. But wealth didn't shield him here. To the staff, Marcus wasn't a CEO, wasn't the man whose signature approved their paychecks every 2 weeks. To them, he was just another black man daring to stand too close to privilege. The manager's voice climbed higher. "Escort him out. Now." Her words weren't just orders. They were theater, staged for every client in line, for every whisperer in the marble hall. And the security guard chuckled, almost doubling over, like this was comedy instead of cruelty. Marcus didn't flinch. His silence was louder than their shouting. He had lived this scene before, years ago, in smaller banks, in office lobbies where he was told to wait in service elevators, in boardrooms where people assumed he was there to pour water, not to sign contracts. Today was no different. Only the uniforms had changed. A boy near the velvet rope tugged his mother's sleeve. "Why are they arresting him?" The mother shook her head, unable to answer, her phone already angled to record. Another client, a man in a gray suit, raised an eyebrow and muttered, "That's not policy, that's prejudice." The words slipped into the air like sparks on dry wood. Still, the manager leaned closer, her voice sharp as broken glass. "We know your type. Fake accounts, stolen cards. You thought you could walk into this branch and fool us?" Her finger jabbed again, trembling now not with fear but with a conviction that power meant she couldn't be wrong. Marcus inhaled slowly, exhaled once. His eyes swept the lobby, the polished floor, the scrolling digital displays, the customers frozen in disbelief. Every detail of this place had once been approved by him, but they didn't see that. They only saw skin, clothing, posture. They only saw what they wanted to erase. The guard's laughter rang again. "Boss, want me to drag him out? He's wasting real clients' time." The red blazer smirked. "Yes, let's end this circus." Marcus didn't move, didn't blink. He stood anchored to the floor, carrying the weight of generations who had been told the same line, "You don't belong here." But this time, this bank, this staff, this moment, they were seconds away from discovering just how wrong they were. Marcus Reed had walked into the bank that morning without fanfare. No tailored suit, no designer watch, no entourage trailing behind. Just a pale blue shirt, pressed but plain, and a slim folder tucked under his arm, the kind of outfit that let him pass as ordinary. And that was the point. He wanted to see how his institution treated the people it claimed to serve when there were no cameras, no headlines, no polished speeches from corporate. He didn't expect kindness, but he had hoped for competence. Instead, he was met with suspicion sharp enough to cut. The manager in red had looked him over the second he stepped into the lobby. She hadn't asked his name. She hadn't looked at his ID. She saw his skin, his clothes, and decided the rest. The guard beside him, shoulders shaking with laughter, treated the whole thing like cheap entertainment. What they didn't know was that Marcus had been here before, not just in this branch, but in 100 rooms like it. At 23, his first commission check nearly bounced when a teller claimed the funds looked suspicious. At 30, a loan officer slid his application back across the desk without reading it. "Not the image we want in our portfolio," the man had muttered. And now, 20 years and billions later, he was still standing in front of the same prejudice, dressed differently, but unchanged in essence. His silence in the lobby wasn't weakness. It was memory. It was strategy. Because Marcus Reed didn't need to shout to prove he belonged here. He had already bought the proof, in mergers, in acquisitions, in signatures on documents that owned the very walls around them. A boy in the line whispered again. "Mom, he looks calm. Why are they so mad at him?" The mother pressed her lips tight, pulling the boy closer, her phone still recording. The hum of quiet outrage in the room began to build. People shifted, uneasy, as if they could feel the line between customer and spectacle being crossed. Marcus's gaze swept the lobby once more. Every chandelier above him had been approved on his desk. Every marble tile had been signed off in his office. Even the security system that beeped when employees scanned their badges bore his company's logo. He didn't say any of that out loud, not yet. He simply stood, wrists pinned behind him, as if he were testing not just the bank, but everyone watching. Because this morning was never about a withdrawal, it was about revelation. And the manager in red, the guard in uniform, the staff who whispered behind polished counters, they were all writing their own verdict with every word. And Marcus? He was giving them the rope. "Check his documents again," the manager snapped. Her tone wasn't about policy, it was about dominance. She motioned toward the slim folder Marcus still held, as if proof itself couldn't be trusted in his hands. A junior teller, barely 30, took the folder reluctantly. He flipped the first page, then stopped cold. The company seal stared back at him. But before he could speak, the manager plucked the folder away and slammed it shut. "Not valid. I've seen forged paperwork before. Security, tighten your grip." The guard squeezed Marcus's wrists harder, the smile never leaving his face. "Feels like paper from the printer down the street," he chuckled. A few clients shifted uncomfortably, whispers growing louder. Near the velvet rope, an older woman frowned. "That's not how you treat clients," she said under her breath. A young man in a gray hoodie lifted his phone, red recording light blinking. The atmosphere thickened, no longer just a service dispute, but a scene. The manager in red leaned closer, her perfume sharp in the air. "We've dealt with your kind before. You walk in here with big claims, thinking we won't check." "Well, not today." Her voice cracked, like ice against glass. Marcus didn't respond. His stillness was a mirror, and it unsettled her more than shouting ever could. A second teller, nervous, glasses sliding down his nose, cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I think his name is in the system. I saw it flash green earlier." The manager's eyes narrowed like blades. "Quiet. One more word and you'll join him outside." The junior swallowed, backing into silence, but his glance lingered on Marcus. A silent recognition, a seed of doubt planted in the room. The guard barked out, "Come on, man, make this easy. Walk out." His hand tightened again, almost daring Marcus to resist. But Marcus stayed rooted, feet planted against the marble like anchors. His calm wasn't just patience, it was a challenge. A test. A client near the ATM muttered, "Why are they pushing him? He hasn't even raised his voice." Another added, "Feels like they've already decided who he is." The manager straightened her blazer, voice sharp. "Escorting him out is procedure. We don't let frauds sit in VIP space." She gestured toward the rope line again, projecting her authority for the audience now forming. Marcus finally lifted his head, gaze sweeping across the lobby. He didn't speak. Not yet. He didn't need to. The silence carried weight, pressing against the arrogance of every accusation. And as the guard shifted his stance, ready to drag him toward the door, the tension in the lobby reached a new edge, the kind that could snap with just one word. Marcus didn't fight the grip on his wrists. He didn't protest when the folder was snatched from his hands. He stood still, breathing slow, as though the weight of their accusations couldn't touch him. The lobby was charged now, phones raised higher, whispers crackling like sparks, but he was calm in the center of the storm. The manager mistook his quiet for surrender. "See? He has nothing to say. That's how you know he's lying." Her words dripped across the marble like acid. The guard laughed again, shaking Marcus's arm for emphasis. "Exactly. Real clients argue. They shout. He's silent because he's caught." But they were wrong. Marcus's silence wasn't weakness. It was history. He remembered being 24, standing in another bank miles from here. After his first big real estate deal, he had placed a check on the counter, legitimate, signed, clean, only to be told the funds were suspicious. "You don't fit the profile of our clients," the teller had said, pushing the check back like it was counterfeit. He left that day without shouting, without begging. He left and built bigger. At 31, he walked into a boardroom to pitch a partnership. The secretary handed him a tray of waters, assuming he was staff. He didn't correct her. He sat through the meeting, silent, until the moment he revealed he was the investor, not the waiter. That silence had power then, and it had power now. Back in the lobby, Marcus kept his head level. His eyes were steady, not on the guard holding him, not on the manager shouting, but on the room itself. The witnesses, the clients, the staff who shifted uneasily. He knew the lobby was watching, and he was letting it see everything. The manager grew impatient. "What are you waiting for? Security, move him out!" Her voice cracked, higher than before, betraying nerves she didn't want to admit. Marcus blinked once, slow, deliberate. Then his voice came, low, steady, cutting through the noise. "You've already said enough." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The words landed heavy, echoing in a room suddenly too aware of itself. The guard tightened his grip again, but this time his chuckle faltered. The clients nearby leaned in, sensing a shift. The junior teller with glasses pressed his lips together, clearly torn between orders and truth. Marcus didn't say another word. He let the silence do what it always had, expose the loudest voices for what they were. The air in the lobby was no longer just charged. It was waiting. A red light blinked in the corner of the room. A young man in a hoodie had lifted his phone, angling it just high enough to capture the scene. His whisper carried, low but sharp, "This isn't right." Across the rope line, an older woman clutched her handbag tighter, muttering, "He hasn't even raised his voice." The murmur rolled outward like ripples in still water, reaching every client waiting in line. At the counter, the junior teller with glasses glanced back and forth between the manager and Marcus. His hands trembled as he adjusted his tie. Finally, his voice broke the air, thin but audible. "Mum, I saw his name in the system. It scanned green. He is a client." The manager's head snapped toward him. Silence. "One more word and you'll be jobless by noon." Her threat cut quick, meant to kill the spark before it spread, but the spark was already burning. The boy with the phone raised it higher. "I've got this on record," he said, louder this time, nerves giving way to defiance. The guard snarled, stepping forward, "Put that away or you'll be next." But the boy didn't lower his phone. His chin lifted instead. "No, people need to see this." The air shifted. One client in a gray suit pulled out his own phone. Another near the ATM whispered, "I'm filming too." The quiet lobby that once only echoed with orders and mockery now pulsed with witness. The manager's voice cracked, louder than before, forcing a laugh that didn't sound like power anymore. "Fine, record all you want. It won't change the fact that he's a fraud, a liar, a trespasser." Marcus stood unmoved, his eyes locked on the teller who had spoken up, offering a slight nod, not gratitude, but acknowledgement. It was enough. The teller straightened his back, shoulders no longer bent under silence. A woman near the entrance finally spoke, voice trembling but sure. "This is wrong, you're humiliating him." She wasn't shouting, but her words landed heavy, filling the gaps the manager couldn't control. The guard tightened his hold again, but now his smirk was gone. His eyes flicked toward the growing crowd of phones. For the first time, he looked less like muscle and more like a man cornered. Marcus's silence held steady, commanding more than any outburst could. He didn't need to speak. The witnesses were speaking for him now. And as the cameras multiplied, the lobby itself seemed to tilt no longer a stage for humiliation, but a courtroom with too many eyes to ignore. The manager's patience snapped. Her voice rose high and jagged, echoing off the marble walls. "He is not a client. He is a fraud. Do you hear me?" Every head in the lobby turned. Some gasped. Others froze mid-step. The words weren't policy anymore. They were venom, shouted for everyone to absorb. The guard shoved Marcus's shoulder, forcing him a half-step forward. "You heard the boss," he sneered. "You're done here. Walk out before we drag you out." Marcus didn't move. His stillness seemed heavier now, like stone placed in the center of a rushing river. The current pressed, but the stone didn't budge. From the back, a woman's voice cracked through the tension. "Why are you treating him like a criminal? He hasn't done a thing." She clutched her purse tighter, her eyes darting between Marcus's calm and the manager's fury. The manager spun, pointing at her. "Stay out of this. He's wasting your time, too. Do you want a fraud standing next to your account details?" Phones lifted higher. The blinking red lights dotted the room like warning signals. A man in a gray suit whispered to his wife, "This is going to explode online." Oh, the junior teller with glasses couldn't stay silent. "Mom," he presented valid documents. "I saw the seal." "Enough," The manager's shout cracked. Her face flushed red. "You will not defend him. You work for this bank, not for liars who walk in off the street." Marcus finally spoke, voice low, steady, deliberate. "You're sure of that?" The words hung in the air like a trap. Simple, heavy. The manager faltered for half a second, then forced a laugh. "Yes, absolutely. I've seen your type before. You think dressing neat makes you credible? You don't belong in this lobby. You don't belong in this bank." The guard echoed her laughter, louder this time, as if volume could mask doubt. "You heard the lady. You don't belong here." And with that, the room shifted. Not just the insult, but the declaration. Clients shifted uneasily, glancing at one another. Someone muttered, "She didn't just say that." Another whispered, "She said he doesn't belong." In his own bank? Marcus lifted his chin. His silence returned, but this time it wasn't absent. It was a presence, a quiet gravity that pressed harder than any insult. The cameras caught everything. The manager's fury, the guard's mockery, and Marcus's unshakable calm. The scene was no longer about suspicion. It was about exposure. The tension snapped like a cable pulled too tight. The manager in red yanked the folder from the counter, ripped it clean down the middle, and tossed the torn pages to the floor. "Worthless," she spat, "just like every scam you people run." Gasps ricocheted through the lobby. A man near the teller line muttered, "She didn't just tear that up." Another customer raised her phone higher, whispering, "Everyone needs to see this." The guard seized his chance. He shoved Marcus's shoulder again, harder this time, and barked, "Out, now, or I'll put you on the ground and call the cops myself." His grip tightened, knuckles whitening around Marcus's wrist, but Marcus stood firm, his feet planted against the marble, calm, centered. His silence only deepened the unease in the room. The junior teller flinched. "That was official paperwork," he said, voice trembling. "You can't just destroy it." The manager whirled on him, eyes blazing. "Quiet! Do you want to join him outside with a security escort?" The teller shrank back, but not before his glance flicked again toward Marcus, the same glance that said he knew the truth even if he couldn't voice it. At the far end of the lobby, a mother whispered to her teenage son, "This is wrong. He hasn't resisted once." The boy clutched her arm, eyes wide, phone still recording. The manager wasn't finished. She jabbed her finger toward Marcus like a gavel striking a bench. "Security, call the police. Tell them we have an attempted fraud in progress. High amount, possibly stolen identity." The guard grinned, already reaching for the radio on his shoulder. Gladly. The words hit like shrapnel. "Police. Fraud. Stolen." The crowd stirred, uneasy murmurs spreading through the hall. Some looked horrified, others skeptical, but none could look away. Marcus inhaled once, deep and steady, as if he'd been waiting for this exact escalation. His jaw tightened, but his eyes remained level. Then he spoke, low, almost quiet, but sharp enough to slice through the chaos. "One false call to law enforcement. That's all it takes, and you've just made it." The guard froze mid-motion, radio still in his hand. The manager scoffed, forcing bravado. "Don't threaten us. You'll be out of here before they arrive." But her voice carried less certainty now. The lobby could hear the crack in it. The crowd could sense the shift. Marcus didn't move. He didn't raise his tone. He let the silence of witnesses press against her louder than any threat he could speak. The balance had tilted, and the manager, too blinded by her own fury, didn't even realize she was standing at the edge of her own downfall. Marcus let the silence stretch until it wrapped around the lobby like a tightening rope. Then, with a slow and deliberate motion, he shifted his weight. Raising his free hand, the guard tensed, ready for resistance, but Marcus didn't pull away. Instead, he slipped his phone from his pocket with calm precision. The glass screen lit up in his palm, glowing brighter than the chandelier overhead. He pressed a single button. A voice answered immediately, clear and steady, carried through the phone's speaker. "Yes, Mr. Reed?" The name rippled through the room. A few clients exchanged looks. The manager's smirk faltered, just for a second. Marcus spoke evenly. His tone sharpened into command. "Log this moment. Begin internal review of Branch 47. Record every second, every word." The voice on the line responded without hesitation. "Confirmed. Audit initiated. Timestamp, 9:50, 1 a.m. Gasps stirred the crowd. Phones shifted higher to capture both Marcus and the call. A man whispered, "He has someone on the inside." Another muttered, "Branch 47. That's this branch." The manager tried to laugh, but the sound cracked. "Cute trick. Pretend you have connections. It won't work here." Marcus ignored her. His eyes stayed locked on the guard, whose grip had loosened ever so slightly. He spoke into the phone again. "Prepare escalation protocol. Freeze access logs. Notify corporate security." The reply came back crisp. "Understood, sir. Standing by." A wave of murmurs rolled across the lobby. The words corporate, protocol, escalation carried a weight that didn't sound like bluff. The junior teller's eyes widened. He whispered almost to himself, "He's not faking. He can't be." The manager slammed her hand on the counter. "Enough! You're just playing games. Security, take him outside before he embarrasses himself further." Marcus's gaze cut through her like glass. "Embarrassment doesn't fall on me today." The room went still. Every phone caught the moment. The posture of a man unmoved. The voice of authority that didn't shout but commanded. And for the first time since the confrontation began, the guard's hand slipped slightly from Marcus's wrist. His certainty cracked, replaced by a flicker of doubt. Marcus lifted the phone closer, his voice calm, final. "Confirm standby, team. Authorization pending." The reply was immediate. "Confirmed, Mr. Reed." The lobby no longer belonged to the manager's rage. It belonged to the quiet power of a man who hadn't raised his voice, yet had just taken control. The manager folded her arms, clinging to authority that was already slipping. "You can call whoever you want. It doesn't change the fact that you don't belong here." Marcus finally turned to face her fully. His voice was steady, but each word landed like a gavel. "You keep saying I don't belong. But here's the truth. You work in my building. You cash checks from my company. And every policy you hide behind was signed with my name at the bottom." The lobby froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the whispers erupted. "Wait, did he just say his company? He owns this? Oh my God, he's the CEO." The manager's jaw slackened, her confidence draining fast. The guard blinked, glancing down at the badge on his chest as if it had suddenly turned against him. Marcus lifted his phone again, but his eyes never left hers. "Broadcast my identity confirmation," he instructed. A chime rang out from the device. The assistant's voice came loud and clear, echoing across the marble lobby. "Confirmed. Marcus Reed, Chief Executive Officer, Horizon Financial Group, parent company of this branch." The words landed heavier than any shout. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones caught every stunned expression, every frozen posture. The junior teller's voice broke the silence. I knew his name was in the system." The older woman near the line whispered to her son, "You're watching history happen." "That Willer." "And the manager?" Her face drained of color. The hand that had ripped Marcus's documents moments ago now trembled at her side. Marcus's voice was calm, final, undeniable. "You called me a fraud, in the very bank I own." The lobby erupted, some in disbelief, some in applause, all in the undeniable recognition that the power in the room had just shifted forever. The moment the confirmation echoed through the lobby, the room split into silence on one side, chaos on the other. The guard's grip collapsed. He stumbled back a step, palms suddenly empty, as if Marcus's wrist had turned into fire. His grin was gone. His eyes darted between Marcus and the phones, recording every twitch of fear. The manager swayed, clutching the counter as though the marble itself might hold her upright. Her red blazer no longer looked sharp. It looked like a costume she had been caught wearing. Clients murmured louder now, no longer whispers but open disbelief. "He owns this place." She tore up his documents. "This is going viral." The junior teller, the one who had dared to speak earlier, straightened his shoulders. His voice, timid before, rang louder now. "I told you his name was real." It wasn't defiance. It was vindication. The manager spun toward him, desperate. "Quiet! You don't understand!" But the crowd cut her off. Phones raised. Applause scattered across the lobby, sharp and sudden. A woman near the entrance clapped twice, then louder, until half a dozen hands joined her. The sound wasn't celebration. It was judgment. The guard tried to salvage dignity. It was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Marcus's gaze sliced through him. "You laughed while restraining me. That wasn't a mistake. That was choice." The guard's mouth shut tight. His face drained white. The manager whispered now, her fury gone, replaced by panic. "Please, mister." "Reed, we didn't know." The words dissolved into the charged air. No one rushed to defend her. Not the guard, not the staff, not the clients. Because the truth had settled heavy across the lobby. Every insult, every shove, every accusation had been delivered to the man who owned the floor they stood on. And with that revelation, their authority shattered. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His authority filled the room like thunder rolling beneath the marble floor. He lifted the phone once more. "Carla," he said, his tone crisp. "Execute termination protocol. Branch 47, manager and head of security. Effective immediately." The reply came fast, sharp, undeniable. "Confirmed. Credentials locked. Access revoked." A beep echoed from the guard's badge. Red. He tapped it against the scanner at the side door. Desperate. Nothing. Another beep. Harsher this time. Denied. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Then the manager's tablet on the counter went dark. Her login screen flashed red across the glass. Access revoked. She pressed it again, frantic. Same result. Her breath came shallow, panic written in every tremor of her hands. Gasps filled the lobby. Clients angled their phones closer, capturing the downfall in real time. One man whispered, "She's locked out. Live." Another muttered, "This is better than any court." Toe. Marcus stepped forward at last, free of the guard's grip, his presence towering even without a raised hand. His words fell calm, deliberate. "You thought my silence was weakness. It was your final mistake." The junior teller's eyes widened, respect etched across his face. A woman near the rope whispered, "Justice, right here, right now." The manager's knees buckled. She clutched the counter for balance, voice breaking. "Please, Mr. Reed, give us another chance." Marcus didn't look at her. His gaze swept the lobby, landing on the witnesses, the clients, the staff who had watched in silence too long. "Access denied," he said, finally, echoing her own words back at her. And with that, her career ended on the very marble floor she had used to humiliate him. The lobby was still buzzing, the echo of revoked access still hanging heavy in the air. Phones hovered mid-air, capturing every second. Clients whispered, some stunned, some smiling, all aware they had just witnessed something larger than a banking dispute. Marcus let the silence linger. He stood tall, free now, no security hand gripping his wrist, no manager's voice cutting through his presence. For the first time that morning, the power in the room was aligned with him, not because he demanded it, but because the truth had surfaced, undeniable and irreversible. He looked at the torn papers scattered on the marble floor, pieces of his own identity shredded in arrogance. Slowly, he bent down, picked up one fragment, and held it between two fingers. His voice was steady, deep, resonant. "You thought tearing this up erased me. But paper isn't power. Position isn't power. Truth is." The words carried across the hall like a final verdict. The manager crumpled against the counter, her red blazer now a mark of shame instead of status. The guard stood frozen near the doorway, badge blinking red in his hand, stripped of authority. Neither spoke, neither dared. Marcus turned his gaze to the crowd, to the young man still recording, to the older woman who had whispered defense, to the junior teller who had risked his voice. Each of them met his eyes, and in those seconds, they knew this was no performance. This was justice being delivered. He spoke again, not to the disgraced staff, but to everyone watching. "You don't fight prejudice by shouting louder. You dismantle it by standing taller. They tried to define me as less in a bank I built. But silence isn't surrender. Silence is patience. And patience always outlasts ignorance." A hush swept the lobby, broken only by the sound of hands clapping. First one, then another, until the room swelled with applause, not for spectacle, but for the weight of a man who didn't need to prove himself, yet had just shown everyone exactly who he was. Marcus slipped his phone back into his pocket. His final words cut clean through the air. "I don't need a recording to prove what happened here today. I am the result of it." And with that, he turned, walking calmly toward the glass doors. The staff he left behind were broken. The witnesses were changed. And the story of Branch 47 had already escaped the marble walls, carried out in 100 recordings, each one bearing the same truth. The black CEO who was denied service in his own bank, and 10 minutes later, ended careers with a single command.